Kelsey!
Welcome back!
Yay!
Yes, go Fever!
Nah, for real, we love you.
And it is officially going down. Everything is kicking off tomorrow. Will the Indiana Fever be coring Kelsey Mitchell? What is about to happen to this team? We got to break these dates down. So all the speculation is done. Okay, we can stop the speculation with, oh man, there's no way the Indiana Fever will let Kelsey walk. Oh man, we should core her and trade her.
You'd expect losing your top scoring partner to spark at least some frustration, especially when the entire system revolves around you. But when Kelsey Mitchell left, Caitlin Clark didn't react the way anyone predicted. She embraced it. So what does she see that everyone else doesn't? Why does this feel less like a setback and more like a strategic pivot? And is her reaction a sign that something even bigger is already in motion behind the scenes?
So the Fever's offseason is off to a predictably good start. I mean, we all knew, especially after Caitlin Clark said it on the NBA on NBC broadcast, that Kelsey Mitchell was priority number one. They had said it back before the front office did. You didn't know maybe if the CBA impacted it, but once Caitlin Clark said it, you knew that was the case. And they had the core designation at their disposal. So the Fever core Kelsey Mitchell, send her a qualifying offer at least, which means she'll be back. Which means they're building around the big three: Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark. Hell of a place to start.
No one expected the calmest reaction in the middle of total chaos to come from the one player with the most at stake. And yet, that's exactly what happened. When Kelsey Mitchell walked away from the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark didn't treat it like a shocking twist. She handled it like just another chapter in the story.
Dropping the news about Kelsey Mitchell stated all WNBA first team and three-time WNBA All-Star Kelsey Mitchell is finalizing a $1.4 million Supermax one-year agreement to return to the Indiana Fever. Now, the first thing I'm thinking about is, what is Kelsey Mitchell going to do next year? Will she stay? Will she go? What is going on? Now, we look at some of the evidence of Marina Mabrey, Brittany Sykes. Instead of taking the one-year Supermax, they did the two-year max contract, which I still feel like they could be traded off of.
Now here's the part that doesn't quite add up at first glance. The franchise just lost the one player who held everything together when things started to unravel. A consistent 20-night scorer, the safety valve when injuries hit, the one who turned pressure into production like it was second nature.
That is done. Benito, tomorrow, everything kicks off. Shout out to Alexa Philippou here. This is courtesy of Alexa Philippou. Okay. And here it states the WNBA's free agency dates have been set. Okay. This just came out not too long ago. Okay. Here it says the designation period will be held April 6th through the 7th. That is tomorrow and Tuesday. It is going down. Will Kelsey Mitchell get cored? Okay, this is where qualifying offers can be set up and core designations can be extended.
This wasn't just a routine roster move, it was the removal of the team stabilizer. And yet, the face of the franchise, Caitlin Clark, didn't spiral, didn't show frustration, and didn't add fuel to the chaos everyone else was already amplifying.
The big three is back, honey. Kelsey Mitchell signed a one-year Supermax deal with the Indiana Fever, as she should. I'm so tired of all of these fans saying this player should have took less, that player should have took less. Y'all are the same fans who swore, oh, these ladies need to get paid. These ladies need to get paid. And now that they're getting paid, they should have took less. Does that make sense to y'all? Now, the Indiana Fever still have some decisions to make, specifically who will be at that 4th position, and I think that's what a lot of fans are.
Instead, she smiled, showed support, and doubled down on something most people only claim to value in pro sports: real loyalty to a teammate. That reaction alone said more than any press conference ever could. While headlines debated whether Kelsey Mitchell made the right move or if the Fever let a golden opportunity slip, something quieter, and far more revealing, was unfolding in the background. Caitlin Clark was showing exactly what kind of superstar she plans to be, not one who demands control at everyone else's expense, but one who elevates the bigger picture. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell was still producing at an elite level, yet the conversations around her felt oddly muted. Analysts praised the numbers, but long-term discussions kept drifting toward fit instead of pure value. That's usually the first sign something behind the scenes isn't fully aligned. Then came the subtle shifts, fewer smiles in interviews, less engagement in team-focused talk, and a more business-like tone whenever her future came up. Nothing dramatic but consistent. And in pro sports, consistency in behavior changes often points to a decision that's already been made internally.
They ended up doing that. I wonder why Kelsey Mitchell didn't do that as well. Now, I'm all for, hey, we can cross that bridge once we come up to it, right? I'm all for that. And let's focus on this year. But I am curious. What are y'all trying to do? Are y'all going to part ways? Or is Kelsey Mitchell looking at a way to actually, I don't know, find a way to get Caitlin Clark paid, herself paid, Aaliyah Boston paid? What is the plan here? It could be positive. It could be negative. I don't know, right? I don't know. But she could be saying, hey, I'll take the Supermax this year, next year.
So when the announcement finally dropped, it felt sudden, but it wasn't random. What made it hit so hard was the timing and the silence. That's why the reaction across the league was so intense. People don't trust quiet exits. They assume something went wrong, and maybe something did. There had already been whispers about how the system under Stephanie White was evolving. And that's where this starts to feel less like a basketball decision and more like a trust issue. Because if you're Kelsey Mitchell, you're not just looking at numbers, you're looking at how those numbers are valued. Are your contributions seen as foundational or just temporary? And more importantly, is your role secure or slowly being reshaped without your full buy-in? Now here's where everything flips. While that tension builds, while fans speculate about locker room dynamics and front office decisions, Caitlin Clark steps into the spotlight and completely disrupts the narrative. Instead of treating this like a loss that makes her situation harder, she frames it as a moment to celebrate her teammates' journey.
Kelsey Mitchell, the Roadrunner, is back with the Fever, finalizing her $1 million Supermax deal. Aha, aha. Y'all thought Kelsey was leaving Caitlin Clark. Aha, aha. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. Kelsey, congrats. You're the first Fever player with $1 million deal, making history. Kelsey's been holding it down for the Fever for a long time. Clark came along, turned him into a superstar backcourt, and now Kelsey making history. Well deserved, getting her paid.
And that's not just a nice gesture, that's a strategic mindset. In a league where every move is dissected and every reaction gets magnified, choosing positivity isn't the easy route, it's the controlled route. It signals confidence. It tells everyone watching that she's not threatened by change. And more importantly, that she understands something bigger than individual chemistry. She understands culture. And culture is exactly what the Indiana Fever are trying to stabilize. Zoom out for a second. This is a franchise in the middle of a rebuild built around one of the most marketable and skilled young players the league has ever seen. And instead of tightening her grip on control, Caitlin Clark is doing the opposite. Positioning herself as the teammate who values people over positioning. That matters. In the WNBA, relationships carry just as much weight as rotations, and reputations travel fast. This kind of response sends a clear message to future teammates. Players notice how stars handle adversity. They watch closely to see whether a franchise cornerstone is supportive or self-centered. And when they see someone like Caitlin Clark consistently showing respect and support to a departing teammate, it makes the idea of playing alongside her a whole lot more appealing.
That's where the dilemma lies. The dilemma lies with Kelsey Mitchell, because do you sign Kelsey Mitchell for 1 year on a Supermax and try to run it back and try to do all of the things that you weren't able to do last year because of all the injuries that they have? Or is there another team that's willing to offer Kelsey Mitchell a multiple year Supermax deal that she's also eligible for, which gives Kelsey Mitchell more stability? She knows that she will be valued for this team and she doesn't have to worry about what her future holds. There is also one more option in the fact that the Indiana Fever could actually offer Kelsey Mitchell a Supermax deal for multiple years.
Now, does that mean everything is perfectly fine for the Indiana Fever? Not even close. Losing Kelsey Mitchell creates a very real basketball problem. You don't replace 20 points per game with optimism. You don't replicate experience with potential overnight. And you definitely don't expect defenses to go easier on Caitlin Clark now that a primary scoring threat is gone. If anything, the opposite is coming. Defenses will lock in harder. Double teams will arrive quicker. Passing lanes will shrink, and the margin for error will get thinner with every possession. That's the reality of losing a player who brought elite scoring and spacing. So yes, Clark's reaction is admirable. but it doesn't erase the challenge ahead. There are still big questions. How will the roster be reshaped? How does the front office plan to replace that scoring production? Will the system evolve to maximize what's left? And maybe most importantly, was this situation handled the right way in the first place? Because there's still a lingering sense that this might have been avoidable with better communication or faster decisions. And those questions? They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Kelsey Mitchell went to the Fever front office and said, hey, respectfully, I don't want to be cored. I'm 30. I'm in the prime of my career. I want a multi-year contract. I would love for it to be from you guys, but if not, allow me to scour the market and see what I could get. I think out of respect for Kelsey, they would allow her to do that. So I really think the ball is in Kelsey Mitchell's court at this point. I really think the ball's in her court at this point, and it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm tired of all the speculation and this and that. We about to see what she want to do. We are about to see if Kelsey Mitchell is cool with being on a one-year max, because I know there's a multi-year max contract out there for Kelsey Mitchell. I know it is.
But what's becoming clearer is the kind of leadership Caitlin Clark is bringing into this uncertainty. She isn't trying to control the narrative. She isn't shifting blame. And she isn't positioning herself as the center of every storyline. Instead, she's doing something rare in professional sports, letting someone else's moment stay exactly that, their moment. And that might be the most powerful move of all. Because while everyone else debates whether Kelsey Mitchell made the right decision, Clark is making it clear that respect doesn't depend on outcomes. It depends on the journey, the effort, and the impact a player leaves behind. That kind of perspective doesn't just build chemistry, it builds credibility. And for the Indiana Fever, a franchise trying to establish itself as a stable, attractive destination for talent, credibility can matter more than any single stat line. So as the dust settles and the headlines keep spinning, Clark is handling it in a way that suggests she's not just preparing to lead a team, she's shaping what that leadership looks like. And that definition is about to be tested in a way that goes far beyond press conferences and respectful reactions. Because once the season begins and the noise fades, everything comes down to performance, execution, and results that can't be softened by intention alone.
If they offer Kelsey Mitchell, let's say, a 3-year Supermax deal, that immediately makes it so that Caitlin Clark can't get that Supermax deal when she is eligible next year. And so that's where it gets really sticky. We still do not know what the Indiana Fever are going to do. And I'm going to be so honest with you guys. I don't really understand this front office. Like, there have been a lot of decisions that they've made, even in players that they signed last year, that I didn't truly understand. And so
the reality is that the Indiana Fever are stepping into a completely different version of themselves. And whether they admit it or not, this is no longer just a development phase. This is expectation territory. When you have a player like Caitlin Clark at the center of your franchise, patience from the outside world shrinks fast, and every roster move gets magnified under a microscope that rarely shows mercy. That's where the absence of Kelsey Mitchell starts to feel less like a single departure and more like a structural shift. One that could either unlock something new or expose everything still unfinished. Because now there is no safety net. And yet, this is where it gets interesting again. Pressure doesn't just expose weaknesses, it reveals ceilings. If Clark fully leans into this moment not just as a playmaker, but as a complete floor general who dictates tempo, controls spacing, and elevates everyone around her, then the entire identity of the team shifts with her. But that only works if the pieces around her rise with the same urgency. It demands coaching adjustments, smarter rotations, and role players willing to absorb bigger responsibilities than they had just months ago. It also demands alignment from the front office, because in a league that evolves this quickly, standing still is often the fastest way to fall behind.
The guarantee they're running it back with Clark, Mitchell, Boston, and Hull. That's the situation as free agency gets started. For the Fever, this mostly was procedural, to be quite honest, of course, but people had questioned whether things could change. And if you look at the salary cap, it's more manageable than panic would make you believe. I mean, look at the Liberty did the same thing. They're bringing back Brianna Stewart. They're bringing back Sabrina Ionescu. They're bringing back Jonquel Jones. They're big three. And, the dream obviously make the big move for Angel Reese, but you got to remember where the Fever are starting from.
And this is where fans start to pay closer attention, not just to box scores or highlight reels, but to the small details that reveal whether a team is truly growing or simply reacting. Ball movement, off-ball spacing, defensive communication. All the subtle elements that separate a team with direction from one that is just hoping talent will carry it forward. Because hope isn't a strategy, especially in a league that is getting deeper, faster, and more competitive every season. At the same time, there's still a human layer to all of this that can't be ignored. Kelsey Mitchell's departure wasn't just about contracts or systems. It reflected timing, personal priorities, and the kinds of decisions athletes face when careers intersect with real life. And the fact that Caitlin Clark responded with support instead of frustration adds a layer of maturity that's easy to overlook, but difficult to fake. That kind of response doesn't disappear once the cameras move on. It lingers in locker rooms. It shapes how teammates relate to each other. It influences how new players are integrated into the system. And over time, it becomes part of something bigger than any single roster move. The identity of the Indiana Fever, whether they operate as a connected unit or something more fragmented under pressure.